Are you a fan of pro wrestling, comedy, and combat sports? Then we have the podcast for you because we cover that and much, much more.
Do you like to debate with your friends? Do we have the perfect segment for you? It's the 531, where we take any given subject, break it down to a top 5. From there, we debate it down to 3, and then into that number 1 spot.
If you want to get a hold of us, find us on our social medias. Search Working Fans Podcast on any major social media platform. And if you want to find the podcast, search for us on any major podcast platform, as well as YouTube.
Working Fans Podcast. We put in the work so you don't have to.
All right, everybody, it's the Working Fans Combatcast with the man they call Dave and Chevy Rooney. We're back, baby, and we are going to talk a little bit of boxing today. And Chevy, before we do anything, why don't you tell the good people what we got coming up?
All right, so we got coming up December 4th, we're going to be doing the UFC Fight Night Font versus Aldo. It's going to be a great fight. And December 11th, we're going to be doing UFC 269, Oliveira versus Poirier. Poirier finally gets his shot at, being the official title holder. He's only held an interim belt, I believe. So Then December 18th, we're going to be doing UFC Fight Night Lewis versus Dukakis. That'll be a fun fight. All of Black Beast fights are fun. Unless you count that Ngannou fight that never happened.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's always that jeopardy. Font and Aldo, too.
That's going to be a lot of punches thrown in that fight, I think.
Yeah.
Some very high-level boxing, for sure.
Font has looked great, but Aldo is still, like, that guy. Like, you can't really say he's going to win the title, but he's right there all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility, but
no, definitely not. Yeah, that's a good fight. And obviously, I'm mostly looking forward to seeing Dustin Poirier. Big fan of his. Get his title shot, and I hope he brings it home, man. No disrespect to Charles Oliveira, but like Dustin is like, as he likes to say, paid in full.
I read a thing where someone said they wanted to see Poirier win, but they don't want to see Charles lose, and that resonated with me. That's how I feel too.
Yeah, because he's a good dude.
Yeah,
I don't want to see him get smashed or anything, but yeah, I'm definitely. He had his moment, and not to say he won't have more because he's a young guy too. But I just feel like, man, Dustin, his time is now if he's going to do it. So I hope he gets it. Yeah, so there were some fights this week. It was not really we've been saying for a while it was not one of the stronger UFC cards, but Caitlin Vera gets it done over Holly Holm.
Misha Tate.
Over Misha Tate. I'm looking at Holly Holm right now in these ranking systems here. And it's actually for bantamweight. It's very interesting too, because like Jermaine Durandamine and Holly Holm are like 1 and 2, which to me, like Nunes has beaten them both convincingly. But that kind of shows you like where these bantamweight rankings are from people compared to like Amanda Nunes.
There's a big jump, yeah.
Yeah. Irina Dalna is number 3, and then Pena, who's getting the next shot. And then you have Aspen Ladd and Vera. Ladd just missed weight not too long ago too. So I guess Vera, I mean, with this win, she's kind of, I don't know about Adana if she's got a fight coming up or anything or what her story is, but man, like Vera's kind of like right there for a title shot at this point.
Yeah, I think her next fight is probably a title shot. If Amanda wanted to, she could fight way more often and just run through girls because she doesn't get hurt in fights. She just is dominating people right now. So
right.
If she wanted to, she could fight Pena and I hate to say this, but she'd probably fight them both in the same night. That's how good she is. But
yeah, man. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Yeah, so and that's a great segue actually, because we're talking about heavyweight fights, and there's a little I want to say it's on YouTube somewhere too, where George Foreman actually did an exhibition and fought. I want to say it's like 5 heavyweights in one night, and he just kept knocking them out.
Can't say I'm surprised by that.
No, this was young, mean George Foreman. Older George Foreman still had a hell of a hand.
Mhm.
I think that might even be on some list here I have. So we're doing a 5-3-1, top 5 greatest heavyweights. I'll read some lists and let's just see what we got here. We got Robert Ombre. He's got any fight out of the Ali Frazier trilogy is definitely in. Fair enough.
Mhm.
And then Paul Thomas added Ken Norton versus Larry Holmes is arguably the best final 3 rounds of any heavyweight boxing ever. You know what? That's funny. I did not get to go look at that one this week. And I've heard that from a few people that Norton Holmes, it's like Larry wins the fight, but it's like I want to say split decision, and it's considered like Larry Holmes' greatest fight, I want to say.
I didn't get to watch that one either.
Then Harry Pierce, obviously a Rocky Balboa fan, has Balboa versus Creed, Balboa versus Creed 2, Balboa versus Lang 2. Okay, so all the ones Balboa 1, Balboa versus Drago, and Balboa versus Dixon. And then he says, at a push, any George Foreman fight, love the more fight. So, all right. So obviously he was a big fan of George as well. Let's see. Here we go again. Lyle Spallone. I'm sorry, Joe Spallone has Lyle versus Foreman. And then Tony Rice has, all right, interesting here. He's got Joe Lewis versus Max Schmeling. Ali Frazier and Ali Frazier 2. Ali versus Foreman and Tyson versus Lewis.
I think we're gonna see a lot of Ali fights on here. I would assume. I mean, he had a lot of great fights, but also they're the most well known.
Yeah. Now you watched some heavyweight highlights this week and stuff. What were some of the fights you got to take a look at?
Well, I'll give you my list, so I'll jump in
Okay.
right here. So I have I'm gonna butcher some of these names too. So I have Ike, Abba Bush versus David Tua. Have you heard of this fight at all?
No.
There were two big heavyweights. I think this happened in the 90s, but both guys just took turns for the entire fight of throwing huge like haymakers, like short combos of huge haymakers, while the other one covered up, and then they would just trade back and forth. So it was almost like playing an old boxing video game where you just cover up and then wait for your stamina bar to go up, and then you just throw just haymakers. But I looked up their stats on their punches because they just stood there and threw punches for all 12 rounds. It was 1,730 punches thrown in a heavyweight boxing, and they were all heavy punches too. So Ike ended up being the winner in a decision that could have went either way.
I keep it thinking like Ike Turner.
Yeah, it's not Ike Turner. It's the guy is he's from Nigeria, I think. So
is this a much older fight? Like in the
no, I think this happened in the 90s.
Okay,
yeah. And then my number 4 is an older fight. So I have Jack Dempsey versus Luis Firpo. Have you seen that one? This one happened in the 20s.
Dude, somebody else had that on our list.
Yeah. So Dempsey knocks Firpo down 7 times in the first round. So this was before they did standing 8 counts. So it was like literally every time he stood up, Dempsey was on him immediately to knock him down again. So, but Firpo comes back and knocks Dempsey out of the ring in the first round. And Dempsey barely gets back in the ring because they still count you. You have to get back in. He barely gets back in the ring. And then Dempsey knocks him down an 8th time, and then finally a 9th time in the second round to win. But there was no technique happening. This would be that Just Bleed guy from the UFC. This would be his favorite fight of all time. They just stood in front of each other, no head movement, no blocking, and just swung as hard as they could at each other's heads over and over.
I want to break tradition for a minute. You have 2 more on your list?
I have 3 more fights. Yeah.
3 more. All right. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I'm going to read someone else's list because it's so telling to what you're talking about right now. Our very own AJ Strange Brew set me a list. He's got Smellin versus Lewis, Ali versus Foreman, Dempsey versus Firpo, 1923, which is the one you're talking about. Fraser versus Ali, 75 and 71. So 1 and 2, I believe. Actually, Ali Fraser could have been 5. Some could have been 3. But anyway, he said, I look for Dempsey versus Firpo to be on a lot of lists. But it's a brawl.
Yeah.
I think he was being sarcastic because he likes to pick older things, but he said it was also in front of 90,000 people at the Polo Grounds in New York.
Grounds, yep.
Yeah, and he said there was 25,000 people waiting outside for the results. And he also threw in our face, I was going to tell you off of camera, he says, I think you guys underestimate my love of boxing history, which I won't lie, AJ, I did. And so we might have you on a future boxing episode, possibly, for your ticket. So let's get to this fight because now I got to go see it at some point. You and AJ have both put it over. 90,000 people too, and 25,000 turned away. That's insane.
Dempsey was a massive, massive star because, boxing was the biggest sport in the 20s, right. Baseball and boxing, So he was a massive, massive star. All right, I keep going on my list. So we talked about Foreman versus Ron Lyle.
Yes.
So that's my number 3. Foreman's power is kind of like Wilder's, like where, he hits people so hard it doesn't look like he's swinging as hard as he's landing. So people get hurt with things that don't look like they should even hurt them. He's just the most powerful puncher probably. But he finally knocked down Lyle in a combo that any ref in today's boxing would have stepped in and stopped because he was just stuck in the corner eating giant shots for like 10 seconds straight before he got knocked down finally. But that was a great fight too. Just very back and forth fight. All these ones are. But then my next one is Wilder Fury 1, which I don't know if that'll be on a lot of people's list. Nobody got knocked out. It was a draw. It wasn't super back and forth, really, but I just thought the story of Fury coming back and then being so technically good. I mean, he dominated, I thought, 10 rounds, only losing the 2 rounds he got knocked down in. In one of those knockdowns, he just got hit behind the ear while he was bending over. So that would knock anyone down because it puts your equilibrium off, but he got right back up. And then obviously in the 12th, when he gets knocked down and, he gets, it's right. I think it was a right hand and then a huge left hook from Wilder that landed, put Fury like in the shadow realm, so to speak.
Yeah. I was going to say.
He was out. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, at like 7, he wakes up like the Undertaker and barely manages to get up to beat the count and then wins the rest of the round. That's the thing. It's like he gets up and then wins the rest of the round. If I learned anything from the Fury Wilder trilogy is that if you knock Fury down, you better be prepared for him to beat your ass after that, because every time he's been knocked out, he got up and beat Wilder's ass.
I was going to say, too, you said no one got knocked out, but Fury kind of did get knocked out. He just came back.
Yeah, I definitely, we watched that one together at Aruga's, and everyone thought he was out, but, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
And then my top one, which I rewatched this morning, was the Thrilla Manila, Ali and Frazier. So, obviously it was just a back and forth slugfest. Joe was just, stalking him down, and he was willing to eat, in classic fashion, willing to eat whatever Ali threw at him, with just little ducks for head movement to try to avoid shots, but he just would eat whatever Ali threw at him to try to land his own shots. And then he ended up getting stopped in the corner in the 14th round of the fight. So that was a great fight.
Yeah, and to your point, like talking about those shots he would eat, styles make fights. And that's kind of where a lot of this stuff always started for me when I started hearing about this was growing up. My dad would tell me that saying too when we'd watch boxing. Styles make fights, and he would use as like an example, Frazier and Ali, and how what a difficult opponent Frazier was for Ali because he's a boxer, he's a brawler, but he's just willing to eat those shots, and his stance was difficult for Ali compared to other people. But then you have a guy like Foreman and Joe Frazier, who was like tailor made for George Foreman. He's just going to come in there and eat shots. Well, Foreman likes that. You can do that all day with George. But then you had Ali. He knew how to use the rope-a-dope, and he knew how to trick George. And so I just think, as we talk about these lists, that's a great thing when you're talking about like Frazier's style, his classic style. Styles make fights. And I think that is in all combat sports is a very true thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I got Chad Dingwell here, lifelong boxing fan. He's got Evander Holyfield versus Riddick Bowe, Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. So anyone you want to pick, I guess. Fury versus Wilder. So he had that in there as well. James Braddock versus Max Baer. That's an old school.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, Max Baer is old school. And Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas, which I don't know if it was really necessarily a classic fight. I think it was one of the greatest upsets of all time, though.
Yeah, the greatest, I think, probably.
Yeah, Douglas actually kind of beat him up in that fight. And I think that was because Tyson just was not prepared. And then, of course, Douglas never went on to really duplicate any of that success. He was just a very motivated man against a very unmotivated Mike Tyson on a given.
I think he also got knocked down in that fight. I don't remember what round or whatever, but he got up and then did work on Tyson after that too, before he finally knocked him out.
Interesting. Okay, so I remember Douglas basically beat him up, but I think you're right. I think there was an early knockdown, but I do think for the most part, like he was about to win that fight anyway. I don't think. Yeah. So, we got Scott. Nope, not yet. We got Randy Osga. Forgive me, Randy Osga coming at us with Ali Frazier 3. Throw in Manila, 1975. So I was right. It was 75. Holyfield versus Bowe, November 13th, 1992. Tyson versus Buster Douglas, February 9th. Larry Holmes versus Ken Norton, June 9th, 78. And Fury versus Wilder 3, October 9th. Which, I mean, okay, the third one was a hell of a battle, too.
Yeah, that was a very good fight.
And let's see. I got Scott from Voluntown now. He's got Ali Frazier to throw in Manila. Foreman versus Lyle. Bowe versus Holyfield. Fury versus Wilder 3. Butterbean versus Bart Gunn Brawl for All. Kidding. Larry Holmes versus Ken Norton.
Butterbean, that's a person I haven't thought about since like Jackass was a TV show. Or it was the movie, I think, one of the movies. But Butterbean, yeah.
Hit him in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we got Dan Backley with the final list today from Cage My IQ. He's got Holyfield versus Tyson 1, Fury versus Wilder 3, Ali versus Frazier, Ali versus Foreman, and Douglas versus Tyson. And I'll just round up this last list with me. I got Foreman versus Lyle 2 as well. I got Ali versus Frazier 3. I got Tyson versus Holyfield 2. I kind of agree with Backley. I think the first one was a little more exciting, but the second one was exciting, and then we had the dramatic ear biting incident. So yeah, I'll just never forget that. Holyfield and Foreman. This was Foreman's first shot back at the title after being gone for so long. If you forget this, he won the title from Michael Moore, but he had this fight with Holyfield first where he did not win the belt, but he had Holyfield in trouble a few times, and this was a hell of a fight. And then I got Foreman and Ali. Zaire, I just thought, it's one of the most masterful performances in any boxing match, watching Ali do that to that big guy that had never been beaten. And Foreman was such a monster, in the amateurs and in the pros, that when you watch the Foreman-Lyle fight, I watched that this week, you can hear Howard Cosell was talking about, is George's confidence back? Is he the same man? And he's talking about Foreman trying to change styles, and is it too late in his career? And Ken Norton, who got knocked out already by George, is saying that he thinks that George can change his style, but he thinks once he gets tagged, he'll revert back to himself.
I think that fight happened it was only, like the next year after the Ali fight too.
Mhm.
So he didn't have that much time to change his, style. But anyway, continue.
It turned into a brawl, anyways.
Yeah, it was a brawl.
So, I think we can pick any of these Ali Frazier fights. They're going to make the list. I would say Ali Frazier 3 we'll throw in there. That's to throw in Manila. To me, that's the
Yeah.
one. I think we'll do. I think Foreman Lyle will make a couple lists, and I think
Yeah, I made some good lists.
yeah, it's just a classic brawl. And just unfortunately, I bet you that Larry Holmes Ken Norton fight probably deserves to be here, but since I hadn't seen it yet, I'm going to, and that's fine. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Um,
There's a lot of fights to watch. Sorry.
yeah, there's a lot of fights to watch, and we'll check that, and maybe we'll do this list again down the road. But I'm going to throw Fury Wilder 3 in there because it was such an exciting fight, and I think if you're looking at eras, that's just one of the most exciting fights of this era. So, that being said, I think if we're going to go by the votes, I think we know the winner's going to have to probably be Ali Frazier 3. And as much as I think Foreman Lyle is such a fun brawl, I feel like there was just a little more excitement in the air for Wilder Fury 3. So I would give that to number 2 spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the hype behind the fight
Mhm.
is what really puts the Ali and Frazier fight at number 1 too. I mean, there was hype behind the Fury and Wilder fight, but we saw Wilder get dismantled in that second one. So there was a little bit less anticipation than you would have expected.
I think one of the exciting things about the Fury Wilder 3 fight was that I don't know if we were expecting that kind of performance out of Wilder. Like Wilder definitely brought it early on, and I thought we'd see Fury basically just take him apart this time. But Wilder brought it, caught him on that power, but then Fury, to his credit, that great chin, he just keeps coming, hanging in there, and then starts to put the beating on him and wears him down.
Right. Wilder showed a lot of heart, but not a lot of stamina. His legs were gone early in the fight, and if he could have kept his legs underneath him and generated, the power that he's known for later on in the fight, it could have been a completely different fight. But
yeah, another thing too, which I always thought was interesting, the drama of that was like the corner with Wilder throughout that series, and how in the second fight Wilder had that huge problem with his corner, and the third fight,
fired a coach. Yeah.
yeah, and this weekend I'm looking it up now, but Sean Porter, who lost to Terrence Crawford, I think he's retiring now.
Yeah,
But
he said he retired after the fight. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
He didn't want to be a gatekeeper, he said. So respect to him.
but like his father, I don't know if you caught this afterwards. Like basically, they asked his father, who threw in the towel, and said, "What do you think happened? What did you see?" His father just came out and said it. He wasn't prepared. That's what I saw. He wasn't prepared. He wasn't doing the things he should have done for this fight. And when you get to a certain level, you have certain things you can do or not do, and he chose not to do them. He knows that, and we're good. We're gonna have breakfast tomorrow,
Yeah.
And I know some people like were saying, "Man, he kind of threw him under the bus a little bit," but I kind of respected it. Like he's his dad, and he's just basically saying, son or not, like he didn't do what he needed to do, and that's what I saw.
I know Porter said that Crawford was by far the best he's ever faced, too.
Yeah.
So, there's an argument that he's right now pound for pound number 1.
Terrence Crawford.
Yeah. Obviously, Canelo probably is number 1.
Mhm.
I've heard Schaub make this argument before, too, that because Canelo will take on all comers and he moves up and down weight classes to win belts and knocks people out at those higher weight classes, that he's number 1. And I think that's probably true. Now, if Earl Spence and Crawford get this fight done and he beats Earl Spence, I think he has more of an argument. So
Yeah.
we'll see down the line. They're in talks now, but boxing is boxing, and we don't get to see the fights we want to see until everyone's old as fuck.
That's why the Wilder Fury fights were so great, and that's what really
Right.
reunited rejuvenated my love for boxing and
Right.
at that level. And like
Now
Chevy,
we need to see AJ fight someone. I mean, Anthony
Anthony
Joshua,
Joshua.
not our AJ.
He wants to fight us. He wants in on this. But yeah, hey, you know what? Shout out to AJ. He might get a spot on a future boxing episode now. He's brought a couple
Let's
lists.
get him on here. Yeah.
We'll do it. We'll do something. We'll have to figure out something. But in the meantime, that's it for boxing this week.
You want to talk about just a quick shout out to the Bellator Ryzen?
Yes.
Horiguchi, the Ryzen champ, will be fighting Sergio Pettis. So
Bellator champ. And bantamweight action. I'm excited to see what happens in this. Maybe we can score tickets to this. It's in our backyard.
Hopefully.
Yeah, this is a good fight. Horiguchi is a guy that back in the day went 5 rounds of Mighty Mouse, kind of got beat up and submitted like with 1 second left in the 5th round. But he went on to win 3 more fights in the UFC and then signed with Ryzen. And
he won a bunch of fights at Ryzen.
He's a champ there now, and he's taking on the Bellator champion, Sergio Pettis. So I'm excited to see how this works because Sergio is a guy to me that we've watched kind of grow up too. And he's constantly improving as well. So
yeah, I still don't think he's peaked really either with his skill set. So
and it's
it's possible he's even better than the last time we saw him.
And it's so good. Like bantamweight division is so good. Like I mean, UFC. Like we said earlier, like when you were previewing Font Aldo, like bantamweights going at it crazy. You know, Aljamain Sterling, Peter Yan, Corey Sandhagen, TJ Dillashaw. It's just crazy. The amount of talent at bantamweight right now, and that's the UFC. But then even over here, like Horiguchi and Sergio Pettis, I feel like are some of the top bantamweight in the world too. I still think UFC has the best overall talent, but these are some studs.
Yeah, for sure. It's a fight worth watching, definitely.
Yeah, this is a good one Bellator has for you guys. Probably a lot of excitement, a lot of they'll be good on the feet, they'll possibly go to the mat. There's gonna be a lot of scrambles. I see this being a very active fight no matter where it goes, both well-rounded. I guess I'll pick a winner. I'm going to go with my heart and say Sergio, but Horiguchi's world-class, and I see him win.
I haven't seen a Horiguchi fight since he left the UFC, but based on his record, his only loss since that Mighty Mouse loss, he got that back and avenged it. So it's I'm going to say he probably gets the win. He's not, over the hill yet or anything. So I'm going to say he probably gets the win. Sergio, like I said, not really at his peak, but has great potential. So we'll see. I think it'll be a very good fight, but I think I'm giving the edge to Horiguchi.
And you're probably right. I mean, that record alone, he's been beating up people, but we'll see come fight time. I'm pulling for you, Sergio. Yeah. All right. Why don't you hit us what we got coming up one more time?
All right. So that'll be December 4th. We got UFC Fight Night, Font versus Aldo. Then December 11th, we have UFC 269, Poirier versus Oliveira. And then December 18th, it's a Fight Night card for Lewis versus Dukakis, Black Beast. Let's go.
And then I wonder if we're going to do anything for you guys on Christmas. See how that...
We'll see. Maybe we'll do something special.
Yeah, maybe AJ might be around for that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this is the Combatcast. Ali Frazier, #1 fight in heavyweight boxing history. At least we said so. And we appreciate you, and we'll be back next week. Have a good night. See you at the fights.
Bye.